Hello everyone, I'm Janine Kakmar with PHTV Channel 4 Palos Heights, and we're back with our show all about books. On this show, as you recall, we talk about books, writing, and authors, and we have a special guest that we get to visit with. So
Hello.
Today we have with us Director and Chief Naturalist at Lake Catherine's Botanical Gardens and Cultural Center, Gareth Blakesley. So Gareth, thanks for being back. We'd love to have you back. We are on here a lot because we work together a lot.
We do.
Through the library in Lake Catherine. We have a lot of programs we work together on. In fact, we have Nature by the Book coming up next month at the library. What is that, on April 17th?
April 17th, quite excited by that. We're going to be discussing Lab Girl, which is I'm only about halfway through it right now, but it's already pretty exciting, so I think it'll be a good discussion.
Yeah, so that's where we meet at the library, but we have a panel discussion. We have some folks from the Lake Catherine staff, we have some science teachers and some English people, and we all get together and we talk about a book. So you can be in the audience, or you just to listen to the conversation, or you could actually
It's quite participatory as well. People from the audience like to talk about it, and I think it's a nice thing.
A lot of good questions. We have a great discussion. So this is a great event. So come join us at the library on April 17th for Nature by the Book. We also have you coming back to the library in May for our Gardening with Trees and Shrubs program.
And so a little bit what I'm hoping that people get from that is to learn a bit about different native plants that they can plant in their garden. That's kind of my background anyway. I want people to know that they can put trees and bushes, and they're kind of sometimes the forgotten types of plants that people don't put in their garden.
We're always thinking of flowers.
And but so many of these trees and shrubs have flowers, and they're so important for pollinators, and some of them can really help with the Mayor's Monarch Pledge that we're helping, and they're good supporting species. So an oak tree can actually support up to 500 different species of itself. So having those kind of other cool species in there and native to the area can really help.
That sounds great. So that's coming up in the library on May 9th. So come join us for Garrett's program on that. But today you're really here to talk about the Nature and Arts Festival coming up in Saturday, April 27th, 11 to 3 at Lake Catherine. We're going to just tell us a little bit how this got started.
I think you listened to an idea of mine and thought, yeah, that sounds all right. But no, it basically stemmed from the idea of we wanted to create an event that enable people to connect with nature. And we were thinking, what are the different ways that people can connect with nature? And for me, it was always been about books. I mean, that's why we're here partly. But it's also other people connect with nature through art forms. So we're trying to do different types of presentations of different ways that people can connect with nature through these different forums. So that's what it came from, and how do we do that? And it's not just about children having an interest in nature, which is so vitally important but it's also about adults and how we sometimes lose our connection with that. But some of these other ways can reconnect adults back with that as well.
Right, and so anytime we could build a connection to nature in any different way is a good thing.
And that develops empathy for the natural world, and that's also essential as well.
Right, and books do a good job of that as well. Well, I guess arts of all forms do that, and I think that's one of the reasons we've got this coming up. But we're going to talk about the details of that in a few minutes. So we'll get to visit back with Gareth in a few minutes. Now we're going to be talking about books. Again, we're not going to be talking about all the new releases in March, but we're going to take a look at some of the ones that are getting a lot of attention. And we're going to talk about some of the New York Times bestsellers as well. And we're going to start off with one of my favorite authors, Peter Heller, who's back with The River. It's his newest book, and one of the most anticipated books releases this month, according to many sources. Heller started his career out writing for NPR, Outdoor Magazine, and National Geographic Adventure, and he turned to fiction writing back in about 2012 with a stunning, best-selling debut novel. It was his first novel, and it just went crazy. Dog Stars was the title, and then he came out with The Painter a few years later, and Celine another few years later. He's an outdoorsman, he's a kayaker, and he takes his knowledge of the river and nature, and he brings them both front and center in his new book, The River. And this is a masterfully paced tale of survival of two college friends on a canoe trip, and it's told with his trademark poetic, artful language. This is a gripping tale of friendship tested by fire, whitewater, and violence. And it begins with two young men who've known each other since they were kids. They have a love for books and mountains and fishing, which leads them onto a fishing trip in northern Canada. Well, they anticipated long days of leisurely paddling with nights under the stars, but then a wildfire changed their plans. And in their escape to safety, they come across a danger of a different kind. So if you've not read any of Peter Heller's earlier books, while you're waiting for this one to come out, check those other ones out. They're all standalone, so you can read any one of them. They aren't related to each other, but they're all very good. Our next featured title is Little Faith by Nicholas Butler. This author, along with Peter Heller, who we just talked about, we're both graduates of the University of Iowa's Writers' Workshop, and Butler has many literary awards to his name. His masterful writing was displayed in his debut novel, Shotgun Love Songs, which came out about 2016. And it's set in rural Wisconsin, where 5 friends come back home because of a funeral. Well, in his new book, Little Faith, he returns with another Heartland novel. It's set in rural Wisconsin, and it's based on real-life events. We have Lyle and his wife Peg, who are, on the onset of their golden years, living a relatively content life in the rural Wisconsin. And then their estranged daughter returns after a long absence with her son, which is their grandson who they never met. While Lyle is thrilled to have his family back all under one roof, he begins to feel uneasy about the decisions his daughter's making. She gets involved with a cult-like church and gets involved with a very charismatic pastor who's putting his grandson, in danger. So Lyle's forced to make a decision that might ultimately affect the family, which they may not recover from. I'm actually reading this book right now, and it's one of those. It's a small book, but I can't put it down. It's so intriguing with the characters and how he paces the story. Library Journal reviews this book as a powerful novel about the generations of family and community, and the ways belief is both formed and shaken, and the lengths we go to protect our own. So if you haven't read Shotgun Love Songs, one of his earlier books, The Hearts of Men is another earlier book of his. Check it out while you're waiting for this one as well. Our third feature title for this month, I'm also very excited about, is The Island of Sea Woman by Lisa C. That's kind of a tongue twister. But we're excited about this. I'm excited about this novel because, first of all, her books are great. She has great characters, complex characters, great stories. I always learn something from her books, but also because this author is going to come to Palos Heights on June 25th this summer as part of the library's Author in the Spotlight series. So save the date. It's going to be June 25th. New York Times bestselling author Lisa C. will be visiting Palos Heights. I'm very excited about that. Will be held at the Trinity Christian College. So this is going to be a good introduction to this. We're going to talk about the book so you can go out and read it, and when she comes, we'll all be ready to have her talk about it. But again, she is a New York Times bestselling author. She's written several novels, including Tea-Girl of Hummingbird Lane, China Doll, Snowflower and the Secret Fan. Some of these have been made into movies, many of which involve women's friendships and the forces that shape them. Her new book explores the traditions and the culture and the politics and the tyranny in the history of Korea, and how this country survives and changes from the 1930s to present day, especially dealing with the consequences caused by the South Korean, Japanese, and American forces during and after World War II. This author, she's also known for her research. She became fascinated by the female divers off this small island in South Korea by the name of Jeju. And the women divers, they're called Haenyeo. They made their living by harvesting seaweed for centuries without any modern diving equipment, and sometimes diving as far as 20 meters to get their catches. And it's a very dangerous and strenuous job, but these women are actually financially independent, which is something unusual for them. So see, I've already learned something. I haven't even read the book yet, and I already learned something. But the book itself is about 2 girls, explores the friendships of 2 young women, Mija and Young Suk, who are from very different backgrounds on this Korean island of Jeju. They become female divers, and they live their life full of responsibility and excitement and danger, and they form a bond of friendship very early in life, which becomes tested by forces outside of their control. and will push their friendship to the breaking point as they grow older. And the novel asks the ultimate question about forgiveness. How do you forgive? How do you find forgiveness? Again, Library Journal reviewed this book as a superbly written, fast-paced read, which not only encourages readers to reflect on friendship, but it also educates on the complex history of this region. So those are the feature titles that are coming out in March, so check those out. We also have several New York Times bestsellers coming out. These are authors we're all very familiar with. Many of them have our ongoing series. Our first New York Times bestseller is Runaway from the master of domestic suspense, Harlan Coben. We have The First Lady by James Patterson, Wolfpack, which is the 19th book in the Joe Pickett series by C.J. Box. Dark Tribute is the 24th book in the Eve Duncan series by Iris Johansson. And Janet Ivanovich is writing with her son Peter and bringing back the FBI agent Kate O'Hara and the con man Nick Fox in The Big Kahuna. Author Steve Berry has written the newest in the international Cotton Malone thriller series, The Malta Exchange. And Unto Us, A Son is Given is the latest in author Donna Leon's Commissario Guido Brunetti's mystery series. And Dave Eggers is out with his newest suspense titled The Parade. So there you have it. We have our books coming out in March, the New York Times bestsellers, and now we get a chance to get back to visiting with our guests. Thanks for standing by.
Oh, you're very welcome.
As I mentioned earlier, we get a chance to visit with our guests. We want to talk more about the Nature and Arts Festival, but I know that you're a big reader as well, Garrett.
Yep.
And we do like to talk about books on this show, so it's a perfect match. And what have you been reading lately? Anything good?
Yeah, I just finished Stranger in the Woods, and it's by an author called Finkel.
What is it about?
It's basically about the last hermit, or they use the term hermit, about this chap who lived up in the woods of Maine.
So it's a nonfiction, it's a true story?
It's a true story.
Okay.
And it's this gentleman named Christopher Knight who basically lived in the woods of Maine for about 25 years. And people knew he was there, but they didn't know where he was. And he basically, after...
what time period is this?
It basically got discovered about, I think about 5 or 6 years ago, something like that.
Oh my God, not modern times?
Yeah, so he basically, after he graduated from high school, he went off on a trip and basically never came home. And he ended up in these Maine woods, which is only probably about, I don't know, 50, 60 miles from where his parents actually lived.
Oh my God.
Disappeared without telling them anything.
Did they think he was dead?
I think they thought it was a possibility. Certainly his siblings thought he was dead. And he was quite an introverted, interesting character. And for him, getting away from people was a way of he found dealing with people very, very hard, dealing with the emotions on their faces, dealing with all these other things. And for him, being in the woods was easier than not. So he lived basically on this person's bit of property, didn't know he was there.
They did not?
Well, not exactly there. And he basically would survive. He wouldn't have any fires because he didn't want to draw attention to himself, even in the middle of winter.
In Maine?
Even in the middle of winter.
How did he stay warm?
He actually stole a lot. From lots of people nearby. So a lot of people nearby either loathed him or kind of or felt fearful of him, or even though they never saw him, they just knew that sometimes
something was out there happening.
They would break into places, but he would always try to make sure when people were away. So he'd always try to be as non-violent as possible. He didn't cause any violence to anyone.
He didn't want to confront anyone.
But people didn't like that because they felt insecure. Anyway, so eventually things caught up with him. He broke into this cabin that I think they used for camps during the summer, and so they've updated their security, finally found him, and they put him in jail. But it's kind of an analysis of him as a person and why he had to escape to the wilds. And a lot of it dealt with the idea of how do you... He couldn't deal with society and he couldn't deal with people, and he found that more stressful than dealing in the woods. And in the woods, he had calm and he had peace, and that's how he survived. Funnily enough, though, he probably only bumped into people like once or twice for the entire 25 years he was out there. And you either have to be someone that can deal with that, or not, and they use solitary confinement a lot of times for torture for people, but so there's a bit of discussion about that, like what kind of mindset do you have to be able to do this and not have any contact.
Does he have any reflections on nature, or what he learned, or what he, or is it mostly about himself?
Well, The chap Finkel interviewed him a number of times, but he was able to, it almost had to piece together an analysis of him through what he was saying. So I think he felt calm and he felt at ease. And I think that was more important to him than anything else. Now, did he have an overwhelming, just getting away from societal norms and constructs was just easier, I think. But he had quite an elaborate setup. And
so he was off the grid completely.
Not crazy. He wasn't crazy.
No, like off the grid, like nothing electronic, nothing.
No. Well, he had a radio occasionally. I think he had a radio that he tuned into things. But he actually, most of his supplies he would get from other people, though. So he wasn't living off the land. He was living off the people near the land.
No phone, nothing, no cell phone, nothing.
Nothing like that.
What about any health crisis or anything?
He apparently had no health issues for the period of time because he wasn't exposed to people's viruses or bacteria.
Even injuries?
Luckily, no. The only thing that he noticed is that when they did a health analysis afterwards is that his teeth were beginning to rot because they had a propensity for stealing sweet foods. And so he
didn't steal any toothbrushes, huh?
No, apparently not. And apparently his eyesight was deteriorating, so his glasses at the time, the original prescription is old.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But then he talked a little bit about him going back into normal life afterwards and how he really didn't deal with that very well, and I think he's still struggling with that.
Oh wow, I just can't get over how the heat thing, no fire, how did he stay warm? I don't get it.
He had a full bed out there that he basically put a whole bunch of magazines underneath there for insulation. He had a tent, and he was pretty efficient with how he set it up. But yeah, there were times, he said, in the middle of winter when he wasn't sure if it was 100% going to survive, but he still felt that was easier than dealing with society.
Wow.
Not my cup of tea. I like being out in the wilds, but I just found it fascinating, that level of going
commitment.
Out. I guess so, yeah.
Right.
But for him, there was no really other alternative.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. If you don't have another choice, then you make what you do with what you have. That's good. Do you have another? I've
just been working through The Bounty right now. It's by a lady called Alexander, and she's been talking about like recreating the whole Bounty experience.
Meaning what? What do you mean?
The Mutiny on the Bounty. That's what we're most famous for. So basically talking about that whole experience of how Captain Bligh was put out to sea on something that's only about 27 feet long, and then 3,000 miles, basically with no real landfall apart from once or twice. And it's just like a major survival story. I mean, Captain Bligh gets kind of much maligned as an evil character, but I don't think he was evil. But it's interesting. So it was piecing together that whole experience, then the recruitment of the people who mutineered, or some of them anyway, and then also the court-martials after that for some of those people that were brought back afterwards. But not going to Pitcairn Island in the end. And,
what time period is that?
1870, something or other. But the whole point of it, the boat was going to go out there to get breadfruit. And that was the whole point, which we kind of forget about, is like using this product as a.
What's a breadfruit?
It's a fruit about this big that's highly nutritious, and I think they were thinking about moving it around different tropical areas as a potential food source. And they were interested in bringing samples back to the UK or back to London to actually use that. But it was a pretty fascinating read. I mean, we think we know the story, but then diving into the details of it is pretty fascinating as well.
It comes almost like a legend after a while, and then she's looking at digging through that, what's real and what wasn't real.
I mean, we've all seen the film, which was good, but this it kind of fills in the details. And I also have a little sympathy for Captain Bligh because he's from Cornwall originally, and
because you're from Cornwall,
right? Okay. So and then he obviously has a whole career after that. He becomes a governor of Tasmania and all this other kind of stuff.
Didn't any pirates come from Cornwall, though?
Most of them, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Pirates of Penzance.
Right? Yeah, there's a few things like that. So that's been a pretty interesting book as well. I've been enjoying that. Great.
All right. Well, are you ready to talk about the Nature and Arts Festival? Wonderful. Well, as we mentioned before, the Nature and Arts Festival is coming up in April 27th from 11 to 3. It's a Saturday at Lake Catherine. So we have a full day planned, right? All right. What do we got?
What have we got? Well, we've got a two-tiered approach to this. And as you know, we've got one set that's going to be programs, and then another set where we're talking about like more hands-on type of activities.
So those are going on at the same time?
Yeah. So basically it also means we're going to have the programs going on at 11, 12, 1 and 2. And the idea is to do something new for people where they can actually see something that maybe they didn't think about. So initially, we're going to be having John Devon, who's going to be doing folk music about
You mean Lee Murdoch?
That's right. I'm so sorry.
Lee Murdoch. He'll be showing at 12.
That's
11.
11 o'clock.
It starts at 11. We'll get this right, folks.
Get my programs mixed up here.
Exactly. So 11 o'clock, the morning starts in the programs area with musician Lee Murdoch.
Right.
And he's a musician known for his songs about the Great Lakes. And he'll be playing music along with that venue.
I think the idea of choosing someone like that was really to, we had Illinois Philharmonic Orchestra last year, but we wanted to have some music that's a little bit different again, but also kind of ties into the natural world and the Great Lakes and water
Nature
and all that.
And arts.
Exactly. So music is a huge part of that as well.
Absolutely. And then at 12 o'clock we have Carrie Sirigas. She's the owner of co-owner of the Harvest Room here in town. And she's going to be doing a program on tea.
Yeah, which should be exciting because who doesn't love tea?
Right, well, definitely. But no, she is very knowledgeable on teas, and she's going to talk about the healing properties and all the different types of teas. And I think she's going to have a special blend there where we can actually taste. So. And
I think that's also important because we think of the classic tea, Camellia sinensis, but then there's so many types of other teas. There are infusions, some that grow wild, some that you can actually get from your garden. So again, it's that kind of connection with some of these things that you can find right in your backyard. And how you can utilize those. And I think that's, again, a connection.
Right. And then we have, that's at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, we have...
the folks from Repurposed Midwest. So they're going to be doing some different kind of reclaimed wood artwork in front of people.
That's something that's really popular right now. Old wood. I think you guys at Lake Catherine just had a brand new... reception desk created.
Right.
Yeah. Want to tell us about that?
Well, actually, this is actually how we got connected with them in the past. It's like we were looking for a new desk. Our old desk was from the 70s. It probably wasn't, but it's still got the 70s. And then we were like, okay, what's nature-y? What looks good? And then we bumped into these folks, and they said, oh yeah, we do this kind of stuff. And their desk actually ended up being the same price or slightly cheaper than a product made probably overseas that you have to claim with chipboard and put it together. So we're like, well, why wouldn't we do this?
Yeah. So it's made out of all old barnwood?
So barnwood on the front, which is all reclaimed. So they go out in the summer and basically strip these old barns down that are basically going to be demolished or broken down or not used or left to rot. They store those kind of pieces of wood, and then they had some lumber from a huge hackberry that had been cut down, and they were able to mill that and use that for the front. So you got the live edge aspects for that sort of stuff.
So those are the same people who will be doing this wood demonstration there, and then we're actually going to be having a drawing for some other reclaimed wood.
Yeah. I just picked those pieces up yesterday, so they'll look really quite cool, made from reclaimed cedar. Because they use other things. It could be like light poles or something that come down. All these other bits are actually great pieces of wood that you can utilize in different ways.
Instead of throwing them out or waiting for them to just lay around and not being used, we can actually repurpose them with art.
Yes, indeed.
Art and nature again. Wow. Who thought of that?
I don't know.
And then our fourth program is going to be at 2 o'clock, our feature author.
So Gavin Van Horn is our feature author. He's kind of a bit of a rock star within the Chicago wilderness scene. He basically writes a lot about urban ecology and our environment. So he'll be a little bit writing about how there's this almost a spiritual aspect of, I mean, he talks about the coyotes a lot. It's like how
his book is about that, correct?
Yeah, kind of, but it's almost like a reference point as a spiritual animal almost throughout. And like how even in the Chicago area, the Chicago wilderness, if you like, there's all these natural areas and bodies and things that you can see in natural areas, and you don't think about that in an urban environment. But arguably, in the urban environment, certainly in Chicago, you have more remnants of prairie than you probably do in agricultural areas.
Is that right?
Yeah. Just maybe the greater Chicago area, I should say, rather than specifically Chicago. And then there's also a big push to be replanting prairies and wetlands and all that kind of stuff within these sort of areas. So the parkland and forgotten strips and the fact that people are planting more pollinator gardens and all that means that you can actually connect with nature sometimes better, I always say better, but in a different way in urban environments. And paying attention to that, I think, is important, that we're not just in an urban jungle, but we are part of the environment. And that part of the environment is all around us, and that you can be...
Yeah, I think that the paying attention part is really key, because we do, we're surrounded by, or in our area, forest preserves. Many times we're just cruising on Route 83. We don't care. We just got to get from one place to another. But we're driving through some beautiful landscape we were just my husband and I were just last night driving through and a coyote. We had to stop for a coyote to get across the road, and and you forget about that. That you're really that close to nature even though we're.
And even Lake Catherine, we think about Lake Catherine as a natural area. That's all human created. That's none of that is natural per se.
Right.
Natural has come in, nature has come in, but that whole area was completely disturbed after 1911, 1922 when they dug the Cow Sag. So this is almost reclaimed natural land, and nature always comes back eventually.
Yeah, we have long discussions about that at our Nature by the Book program, so maybe you should try that too. Anyways, I'm combining different programs. But so we have the presentations going on, back to the Nature and Arts Festival. We have our 4 programs going on, and you can just come on in. You can register if you'd like, but you're welcome just to
Absolutely,
drop in.
anyone can pop in.
They're free.
Yes.
Open to the public. So what's going on in the clubhouse at this time?
So in the clubhouse we'll have a variety of a bit more hands-on activities. We're going to hopefully have some painting going on, a poetry wall, so that people can use natural words to make their own poetry, because literature obviously is a key aspect of connecting with nature. We're hoping to have some reclaimed pieces of wood from the ground, maybe do some walking stick type crafts.
That idea,
so we've got all this kind of other things kind of going on that we might have some imprints of natural imprints that you might find on the grounds. And then we've got some story times going on.
Oh yeah, the library will be there at 1 and 2. 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock for story time. I think if in a special setting, did we get that done?
It will all be done.
Oh, okay. So you'll have to stay tuned.
We've got a month.
Okay, great.
But no, it'll be exciting because I think we wanted to make sure that people can have on those hands-on activities. It's very good to listen to someone, but then I want people to be able to utilize those ideas. And it's not just for children; it's also for adults as well. And I want people to be able to take these ideas, use them in their life, come up with some fun ideas. And I think it's a good kind of follow on from last year, where we had different activities last year and different programs, and I think having that continuation of what can you do.
I was just going to say, it's a great, last year we had a great turnout. We had people walk away, they just, that was a great afternoon, or they learned something, or they got something out of the programs, and that's pretty much what we plan on this year, and as a continuation, but just tweaked here and there for some new things. And
I think it's important that this one is free as well, because this is kind of this is directly mission driven for us, so connecting people with nature, and so that is really important as an institution for us to kind of get that. I mean, other programs are obviously about that as well, but this one I think is about kind of really focusing on those elements, and then obviously having the partnership with the library is huge for us to be able to make this work.
Right, and Palos Arts Commission as well. Yes, okay. All right. Well, so are we good? Do we have anything else to share?
I don't know. I think that's probably pretty good, right?
Okay. All right. Well, there you have it. The Nature and Arts Festival, save the date for that. Coming up April 27th, 11 to 3 at Lake Catherine on a Saturday. A great way to spend the day. Gareth, thanks so much for coming out again and for talking to us about books and your events here at the library in Lake Catherine. Thank you all for tuning in and for watching, and we'll see you next time.